we've talked a lot about this issue with identity. We've talked extensively about this, and yet I'm still getting a lot of people who are corresponding with me and asking me how to help them to see themselves the right way that they need to see themselves. And guys, first of all, I want to tell you something. Your problem, for those of you who've been with me long enough, you know exactly what I'm going to say. But I'm going to say this, and I'm going to hammer this home as much as I have to. Your problem has nothing to do with your lack of skills. Has nothing to do with your perception that you think you're lazy, incompetent, lacking in courage, lacking in all the things, the basic aptitudes and capacities that you need in order to succeed. Your problem is not that you lack those things. Your fundamental biggest problem, the number one thing that you need to begin to work on is your self-concept, how it is you see yourself. The concept that says, this is the sort of person I am in this situation or in general. And there's only one way to change that. You have to begin to imagine yourself as a different person. You have to surround yourself with people that that you can emulate, that have type of characteristics that you admire and want to incorporate into who you are. That's the only way. Because in order to do something successfully, you always have to have a mental picture of it. You cannot just wing something. If you don't have a clear mental image of something, you're not going to do it. It's like building a house, no different. If you don't have a clear vision of what you want that house to look like, it's never going to happen because there's nothing that's going to happen. Building your personality, building who you are. I mean, I don't know what the word is for, but building who you are, who you want to be, the kind of person you want to be. You can be anything. Any of you guys. You guys could be murderers if you wanted to be. I don't care how nice you are. Any single one of you guys pushed to the wrong situation and cultivating enough hatred for somebody could become an absolute heartless killer. Honestly, do your research if you don't believe me, because I'm not going to sit here and convince you. We can become anything we want to be, and by default, if we don't have an image of the kind of person we want to be, we are gonna. It's like the concept of weeds in a garden. You know, weeds in a garden don't take any effort to grow. And the negative attributes in our personality don't take any effort to grow. They grow by default. And this is what is happening when you and I neglect to cultivate a vision of the kind of person that we want to be in whatever situation it is, as a parent, as a spouse, as a salesperson, as an entrepreneur, whatever it is. We are ultimately, if we don't consciously cultivate, there's always going to be an image of something. There's always going to be an end goal. There's always going to be some target that's in our mind. Most people don't recognize this. They think that they're just lacking a goal. There's always going to be a goal. You're always moving. But it's the default stuff is what's killing you guys. So you have to begin to imagine, right? We've talked a lot about imagination. If you're new on here, dig up the stuff I've talked about imagination, because imagination is the foundation to everything. Where does building a house start? In the imagination. Where does building a car start? In the imagination. Where does starting a business start? In the imagination. And this has nothing to do with your capacity to be creative in your imagination and come up with good ideas. Although that is important, that comes later. But constructing a new self begins in the imagination. All of the foundation, the biggest reason why you and I fail or succeed is because of how we use our imagination. Every single one of us has had experiences where we've done something that is out of our comfort zone, and we've either leading up to the time where it was game on time. This is where it's showtime. We've all had the experience of playing that scenario out in our imagination leading up to it. And if we really cultivated seeing ourselves win at it, then the results have been much better. But most of the time what we've done, if we haven't had previous success, is we actually will just rehearse failure in our mind over and over again. Rehearsing that failure. Where is that happening? Is that happening in reality? That's happening in our imagination. Every single bit of this happens in our imagination. A man is broken or made by what he does with his imagination. We hear about the mind and we hear about how we think. What exactly is that? It's the mental pictures. It's how we're seeing stuff. It's what's happening in our imagination. So we've got to get that dialed in. You're failing and seeing yourself as a failure and convinced that you're a failure because you keep imagining yourself as a failure. That's where it needs to change. That's the only place it needs to change. And as soon as you go to work on that and practice, guys, I'm telling you, practice. If you're in sales, practice being a better salesperson. Watch stuff. Watch videos of people who are communicators in the way that you want to communicate. And study this stuff and begin practicing it. And you're going to be absolutely shocked at how you start to change. Because you have to, in order for us to do anything, we've got to have a mental picture of it in our mind first. And without that, nothing's going to happen. Have a good night.